Rain drummed against the roof of the old Victorian house in Portland, Oregon, as Jennifer Hayes climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. She'd been putting off this task for months, sorting through her grandmother's belongings after her death at 97, but the house was scheduled for sale, and the attic couldn't remain untouched forever. Jennifer was 36, a high school history teacher with a practical disposition and little patience for sentimentality. Yet as she navigated between dusty furniture and stacked boxes, she felt the weight of accumulated family history pressing down on her. Her grandmother Ruth had lived in this house since 1952, and the attic had become a repository for 7 decades of memories. Most of the boxes contained predictable items: holiday decorations, old clothing, books yellowed with age, children's toys from the 1960s when Jennifer's mother had been young. Jennifer worked methodically, separating items for donation, sale, or disposal. Then she found a small wooden trunk pushed into the far corner, partially hidden behind a broken rocking chair. The trunk was locked, but the key hung from a string tied to the handle. Jennifer opened it carefully. Inside were photograph albums, old ones bound in crumbling leather with brittle pages. She lifted the top album and opened it gently. The photographs were mounted with corner tabs, most of them formal studio portraits from the early 1900s. She turned pages slowly, seeing faces she didn't recognize. Stern men in high collars, women in elaborate dresses with their hair piled high, children posed stiffly in their finest clothes. Then she reached a photograph that made her stop breathing. It was a family portrait, a man and woman seated, with 3 children arranged around them. 2 older children, perhaps 7 and 9, stood behind their parents. But it was the baby, held in the mother's arms, that captured Jennifer's attention completely. The baby, maybe 6 or 7 months old, wasn't looking at the camera like everyone else. Instead, the infant's gaze was directed upward and to the side, focused on something above and beyond the photographer. And the expression on that tiny face was impossible. Babies didn't look like that. They couldn't. The infant's eyes held an intensity, an awareness that seemed utterly wrong for someone so young. Not crying, not laughing, not displaying any of the simple emotions babies showed. Instead, the child's face held something Jennifer could only describe as recognition, as if the baby was seeing something specific, something meaningful, something that commanded complete attention. Jennifer turned the photograph over. Written in faded ink, "The Morrison Family. Seattle, Washington, December 1908. She looked at the image again, unable to shake the profound discomfort it produced. Something about that baby's gaze felt deeply unnatural, as if she were looking at something that shouldn't exist. Jennifer took the photograph downstairs and set it on the kitchen table under bright light. The unsettling quality didn't diminish. If anything, better illumination made the baby's expression even more disturbing. She needed to understand what she was seeing. And she needed to know why her grandmother had kept this photograph locked in a trunk for so many years. Jennifer spent the evening researching the Morrison name in relation to her family history. Her grandmother's maiden name had been Morrison, Ruth Morrison, before she married Thomas Hayes in 1950. Jennifer had never known much about her grandmother's family beyond the basics. They'd lived in Seattle. Her great-grandparents had emigrated from Scotland in the 1890s, and Ruth had been an only child. She pulled out the family Bible that had belonged to her grandmother, a heavy volume with a genealogy section filled out in various hands over several generations. There, in careful script, she found the Morrison family tree. William Morrison, born 1875 in Glasgow, Scotland. Married Margaret Reed, born 1878 in Edinburgh. In 1897, children James, born 1899, Catherine, born 1901, and then, written in slightly different ink, as if added later, Anna, born June 1908, died March 1909. Jennifer's hands trembled as she did the math. If Anna was born in June 1908, she would have been 6 months old in December 1908, exactly the age of the baby in the photograph. She looked at the photograph again. The baby, Anna, staring at something no one else could see, with that impossible expression of focused attention. Anna had died at 9 months old. No cause of death was listed in the Bible, just the stark dates: June 14, 1908, March 22, 1909. Jennifer opened her laptop and began searching historical records. Death certificates from 1909 were digitized and available through the Washington State Archives. It took nearly an hour, but she finally found it. Anna Morrison, age 9 months, cause of death unknown. Attending physician, Dr. Thomas Brennan. The certificate included a note in the physician's hand. Sudden decline. No apparent illness. Child stopped eating and responding 3 days before death. Cause undetermined. Jennifer sat back, feeling cold. A healthy baby, by all accounts, who had simply stopped engaging with the world and died within days. No illness, no accident, no explanation. She thought about that photograph, about Anna's gaze fixed on something beyond the frame. What had the baby been seeing? And did it have anything to do with her death 3 months later? The next morning, Jennifer called in sick to work and drove to the Seattle Public Library. If she wanted to understand this photograph, she needed to know more about when and where it was taken, and whether other photographs from the same session existed. The library's Special Collections Department held extensive materials on Seattle's history, including business directories and archives of local photographers. Jennifer found the 1908 Seattle directory and scanned through the listings for photography studios. There were dozens, but only one in the downtown area that matched the style and quality suggested by the Morrison family portrait, Ashford and Company Fine Photography, located on 2nd Avenue. She requested the Ashford archive, and a librarian brought her 3 boxes of materials, business records, example photographs, and personal papers belonging to Edward Ashford, who had operated the studio from 1902 until his death in 1915. Jennifer began sorting through sample photographs, comparing them to the Morrison portrait. The style matched: formal composition, careful lighting, quality printing. Ashford had been a skilled photographer who served Seattle's middle and upper-class families. Then she found Ashford's appointment ledger from 1908. The entries were meticulous: dates, client names, session types, fees collected. She scanned through December 1908 and found it. Morrison family. December 18th, full family portrait, $500. December 18th, 1908. Anna would have been exactly 6 months old, but tucked into the ledger at that page was something unexpected. A folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. Jennifer opened it carefully. It was a note in Ashford's handwriting, dated December 19th, 1908. I must record what happened yesterday, though I hardly believe it myself. The Morrison family came for their portrait, a standard session, nothing unusual requested. The parents were pleasant, the older children well-behaved. But the infant girl troubled me from the moment they entered the studio. The child did not cry or fuss, which was unusual enough for a baby of that age. But more disturbing was her attention. She stared fixedly at the corner of the studio ceiling, tracking something I could not see. When I positioned the family and prepared the camera, the infant's gaze never wavered. She ignored her mother, ignored me, ignored everything except that corner of the room. I took 3 exposures, hoping at least one would capture the infant looking toward the camera. But in every frame, she maintained that same fixed stare. The parents noticed, of course. The mother tried to redirect the child's attention, but the baby seemed not to hear her. It was as if the infant was completely absorbed in observing something of great importance, something invisible to the rest of us. When I developed the plates, I noticed something that chilled me. In the corner where the infant was staring, there appeared to be a slight distortion in the negative, a shadow or blur that shouldn't have been there. I checked my equipment but found no defect. The anomaly appears only in the section of the image where the child's gaze was directed. I have no explanation for this. I provided the family with 1 finished print and kept the other plates. I cannot shake the feeling that the infant was seeing something real, something present in my studio that day, which the camera partially captured, but which remained invisible to human eyes. Jennifer read the note 3 times, her heart racing. She looked at the photograph again, tracing the angle of Anna's gaze. The baby was looking up and to the right, toward what would have been the corner of the studio. She needed to see those other plates Ashford mentioned. She needed to know if the distortion he described was visible in all 3 exposures. Jennifer spent the next week tracking down every possible location where Ashford's photographic plates might have been preserved. The Seattle Historical Society, the Museum of History and Industry, the University of Washington Archives. She contacted them all. Most of Ashford's plates had been destroyed in a fire in 1932. when the building storing his archived materials burned down. But a small collection had been donated to the Puget Sound Maritime Museum by Ashford's daughter in 1945, primarily plates documenting Seattle's waterfront and shipping industry, the museum's area of focus. Jennifer made an appointment to examine the collection. The curator, a man named Peter Gallagher in his late 50s, met her in the museum's climate-controlled storage facility. "We have about 200 plates from Ashford," Peter explained, leading her to a cabinet with shallow drawers, mostly commercial work, ships, docks, industrial sites. A few portraits were mixed in, but we never cataloged them properly. They weren't relevant to our maritime focus. "I'm looking for family portraits from December 1908, Jennifer said. "Specifically, the Morrison family." Peter opened several drawers and they searched through glass plates carefully wrapped in archival tissue. Most were indeed maritime subjects, but in the fifth drawer, Jennifer found 3 plates labeled Morrison, Deck 1908. Her hands shook as Peter helped her prepare a light table for viewing. They positioned the first plate carefully. The image showed the Morrison family in the same pose Jennifer had seen in the finished photograph. William and Margaret seated, James and Catherine standing behind them, baby Anna in her mother's arms. And the baby's gaze, just as before, was directed upward and to the right. But when Jennifer looked at the corner of the image where Anna's attention was focused, she saw what Ashford had described, a distortion, a blurred shadow that seemed to hang in the air, darker than the surrounding space but without clear definition. "That's strange," Peter murmured. "Looks like a developing error or damage to the plate." "It's in the same location in all 3 plates," Jennifer said quietly. They checked the second and third plates. In each one, Anna's gaze was identical, fixed on the same point, and in each one, the shadow appeared in that corner, slightly different in density and shape but always present. "Whatever this is," Peter said, "it was there during the exposure. This isn't damage or developing error." The camera captured something. Jennifer photographed all 3 plates with her phone, making sure to capture the shadow detail. She thanked Peter and left the museum, her mind racing, a 6-month-old baby, staring at something invisible to everyone else. A photographer disturbed enough to document his concerns in writing. And a camera that had somehow registered a presence, a shadow, a distortion, in the exact location where the infant's attention was focused. What had Anna Morrison been seeing? Jennifer's next step was to find Dr. Thomas Brennan, the physician who had signed Anna's death certificate. She searched historical medical directories and found that Brennan had practiced in Seattle from 1895 until 1920, specializing in pediatric care. The Washington State Medical Association archives, housed at the University of Washington, contained some of Brennan's papers, case notes, correspondence, and research materials he donated before his death in 1924. Jennifer spent 2 days going through boxes of documents, searching for any mention of Anna Morrison. She finally found it in a collection of case files from 1908-1909, a folder labeled Morrison, Anna, Unexplained Decline. Brennan's notes were extensive and increasingly troubled. January 15, 1909. Examined infant Anna Morrison, age 7 months. Parents report child has become increasingly unresponsive over past 2 weeks. Infant feeds poorly, rarely cries, spends most time staring fixedly at empty space. Physical examination reveals no abnormalities. Heart, lungs, reflexes all normal. Cannot explain behavioral changes. January 27, 1909. Mother reports infant now barely responds to stimulation. Child's gaze remains fixed on various points in the room, tracking something imperceptible to observers. When held, infant goes rigid, maintaining focus on whatever she appears to be watching. Have consulted colleagues, but no similar cases documented. February 3, 1909. Infant's condition deteriorating. Weight loss despite adequate feeding attempts. Child appears exhausted but rarely sleeps. Eyes remain open, constantly watching. Parents are distraught. Mother believes child is seeing spirits. I have no medical explanation. February 18, 1909. Discussed case with Dr. Walter Hammond, neurologist. He suggests possible seizure disorder, but symptoms don't match known presentations. The focused, deliberate nature of infant's gaze suggests consciousness and intent, not seizure activity. Hammond proposes infant may have extraordinary visual perception. seeing electromagnetic phenomena or other physical processes invisible to normal human vision. But this doesn't explain rapid physical decline. March 20th, 1909. Infant extremely weak. No longer able to feed. Parents have accepted that death is imminent. The child's eyes remain open, still watching, but with decreasing focus. Whatever she has been observing for these past months appears to be fading, or perhaps she is finally losing the ability to perceive it. March 22nd, 1909. Anna Morrison died this morning at 6:47 a.m. In her final moments, her gaze finally left the empty space she had been watching and fixed on her mother's face. The child seemed to truly see her mother for the first time in months, and a small smile appeared. Then she was gone. I have no cause of death to list beyond failure to thrive, but I suspect the truth is that this infant saw something the rest of us cannot see, and the effort of perceiving it consumed her strength until nothing remained. Jennifer closed the folder, tears streaming down her face. Anna hadn't been sick. She'd been seeing something real enough that a camera had partially captured it, and the experience had somehow drained the life from her. Jennifer contacted Dr. Raymond Foster, a neurologist at Oregon Health and Science University who specialized in unusual perceptual disorders. She explained what she'd discovered about Anna Morrison and asked if there was any medical basis for an infant perceiving things invisible to others. Dr. Foster invited her to his office in Portland. He listened carefully to Jennifer's account, examined the photographs she'd brought, and read through Dr. Brennan's case notes. This is extraordinary, he said finally, but not entirely unprecedented. There are documented cases of individuals with heightened electromagnetic sensitivity, people who can detect fields and frequencies that most humans cannot consciously perceive. In infants? Jennifer asked. Infant perception is actually less filtered than adult perception. Babies haven't yet learned what to ignore. Their brains process a much wider range of sensory input before neural pruning narrows their focus to what's considered relevant. Most infants lose these broader perceptual abilities by age 1 as their brains develop normal filtering mechanisms. Dr. Foster pulled up several research papers on his computer. There's been fascinating work on infant visual perception. Some studies suggest babies can detect ultraviolet light, electromagnetic fields, even subtle air pressure changes that adults can't consciously register. Usually these abilities fade as the brain matures and focuses on processing visible light and standard sensory input. But what if they didn't fade? Jennifer asked. What if an infant continued to perceive these things consciously? It would be overwhelming. Imagine trying to process visual input from multiple spectrums simultaneously. Visible light plus ultraviolet plus electromagnetic fields. The cognitive load would be immense. For a developing infant brain, it might be unsustainable. He looked at the photograph again, at Anna's focused gaze. If this child was perceiving electromagnetic phenomena, and given that early cameras were sensitive to a broader spectrum of light than human eyes, which might explain the shadow your photographer captured, the constant input could have been exhausting. Eventually, the neurological strain might have prevented normal development and feeding, leading to the decline Dr. Brennan documented. So she died from seeing too much? Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. In a sense, yes. Her perceptual abilities exceeded her neurological capacity to process the information. It's a tragic irony, a gift that became fatal because the infant brain wasn't equipped to manage it. Dr. Foster printed out several articles for Jennifer to read. As she left his office, he said quietly, "Your great-great-aunt wasn't sick or cursed. She was extraordinary, and she paid the price for being born with abilities humanity doesn't yet understand." Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about the shadow in the photographs, the distortion that appeared in all three plates, captured by Ashford's camera in December 1908. If Dr. Foster was right, if Anna had been perceiving electromagnetic phenomena, what exactly had the camera captured? She contacted Dr. Lisa Chen, a physicist at Portland State University who specialized in electromagnetic field visualization. Jennifer explained the situation and shared the photographs of Ashford's glass plates, highlighting the shadow. Dr. Chen studied the images carefully. Early photographic emulsions were sensitive to a broader range of the electromagnetic spectrum than modern film or digital sensors. They could capture ultraviolet and even some infrared wavelengths that human eyes can't see. She magnified the shadow region on her computer, This distortion has characteristics consistent with electromagnetic field interference. See how the photographic emulsion is darker in this area? That suggests the presence of a field strong enough to affect the chemical reaction in the emulsion during exposure. What could generate a field like that in 1908? Jennifer asked several things. Seattle in 1908 was rapidly electrifying: power lines, streetcars, telephone systems. The Ashford studio was on 2nd Avenue, in the heart of the commercial district. There would have been significant electromagnetic activity from new electrical infrastructure. Dr. Chen pulled up historical maps of Seattle's electrical grid in 1908. Look at this. 2nd Avenue had some of the city's earliest underground power cables, installed in 1906-1907. If Ashford Studio was directly above or near one of those cables, there could have been persistent electromagnetic fields in the building. She pointed to the shadow in the photograph. If the infant had heightened sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, she would have been able to perceive the field generated by those power cables as a visible phenomenon, something most people couldn't see at all. And if the field was strong enough, the camera's emulsion could partially register it, creating this shadow effect. Jennifer felt pieces clicking into place. So Anna was seeing the electrical fields in the studio. That's what she was staring at, most likely. And if she had this sensitivity consistently, if she was constantly perceiving electromagnetic fields from power lines, household wiring, streetcar cables, she would have been processing an enormous amount of visual information that no one else could see. It would have been like living in a world full of invisible light sources and energy patterns, all competing for her attention. Until it killed her, Jennifer said quietly. Dr. Chen nodded. The human brain requires enormous energy. An infant brain developing while processing exponentially more sensory input than normal would have been under severe metabolic stress. Eventually, the energy demands would have exceeded what her small body could sustain. Armed with new understanding, Jennifer returned to Dr. Brennan's papers at the University of Washington archives. If Anna's case had been as unusual as his notes suggested, perhaps he'd looked for similar cases. Perhaps Anna hadn't been the only one. She searched through Brennan's research files and found what she was looking for. A folder labeled Unusual Infant Perceptual Cases, 1907-1912. Inside were case summaries for 7 children, all under the age of 2, who had displayed similar symptoms to Anna. Each child had become fixated on empty space, staring at things invisible to others. Each had gradually declined, despite showing no signs of illness. And each had died between the ages of 7 months and 18 months. Brennan had documented the cases meticulously. Case 2. Male infant, age 11 months. Parents lived near newly installed electrical substation. Child became increasingly focused on staring at walls, ceiling, specific locations in home. Declined over 4 months. Deceased January 1908. Case 4. Female infant, age 9 months. Family resided on 3rd Avenue above streetcar route. Child appeared to track invisible movement along ceiling, became unresponsive to family. Deceased April 1909. Case 6. Male infant, age 14 months. Parents operated telegraph office and home. Child constantly watched telegraph equipment, stared at walls where wiring was installed. Weight loss, failure to thrive. Deceased November 1910. The pattern was clear. Every child had lived in close proximity to electrical infrastructure, power substations, streetcar lines, telegraph systems. Every child had displayed the same fixated staring behavior, and every child had died young. Brennan had written a summary note at the end of the file. I believe these infants possessed extraordinary sensitivity to electromagnetic phenomena associated with Seattle's rapid electrification. They perceived fields and energies invisible to normally sighted individuals, and the constant perceptual input proved fatal. I have attempted to publish my findings, but medical journals reject the manuscript as speculative. Colleagues suggest the deaths were coincidental, unrelated to the children's apparent perceptual abilities. But I have watched 7 infants die under nearly identical circumstances. This is not coincidence. This is a new form of environmental sensitivity, and we have no way to protect children who possess it. As our cities become more electrified, I fear we may lose more infants with these extraordinary abilities, children who can see the invisible world we are creating. Jennifer sat back, overwhelmed. 7 children, all in Seattle, all during the same period of rapid electrical expansion, all dead before their 2nd birthdays. and Anna had been one of them. Jennifer needed to understand why her grandmother Ruth had never mentioned Anna, why the baby's death had been hidden so completely that subsequent generations knew nothing about her. She returned to the wooden trunk in her grandmother's attic and searched more carefully. Beneath the photograph albums, she found a collection of letters tied with faded ribbon. The letters were correspondence between Ruth's mother, Margaret, and her sister, Elizabeth. Spanning 1909 to 1911, Jennifer untied the ribbon carefully and began reading. March 25, 1909, 3 days after Anna's death. Dear Elizabeth, our baby is gone. The doctor says her heart simply stopped, but I know the truth. Anna saw things we couldn't see. For months, she stared at empty air, at corners of rooms, at spaces where nothing visible existed. She was watching something, Elizabeth. Something real, and it consumed her. William believes I'm overwrought with grief, but I know what I witnessed. Our daughter perceived a world beyond our sight, and it took her from us. April 10, 1909. Elizabeth, I have decided we will not speak of Anna's abilities. People already whisper that I'm mad with grief, that I'm inventing supernatural explanations for natural tragedy. Dr. Brennan has been kind, but even he cannot fully explain what happened. I will tell people Anna died of illness, nothing more. William agrees this is best. We cannot have rumors of strangeness attached to our family. James and Catherine need normal lives. Not the stigma of having had a sister who saw ghosts or spirits or whatever it was Anna perceived. September 3, 1909. I removed all photographs of Anna from the albums. I cannot bear to see her face, to remember that expression she wore, that look of intense focus on things invisible to me. I have kept one photograph locked away. Someday, perhaps, someone will understand what happened to her. But for now, we will pretend she never existed. It is cruel, but it is survival. The letters continued for 2 more years, documenting Margaret's grief and guilt over erasing her daughter from family memory. Then, in a letter from July 1911, I am pregnant again, Elizabeth. I am terrified this child will have Anna's abilities. William says I'm being irrational, that Anna was simply sickly, and that our new baby will be healthy. But I watch for signs. I pray this child will see only what normal children see, that they will be spared Anna's gift and its terrible cost. That baby, Jennifer realized, had been Ruth, her grandmother, born in January 1912. Ruth had never known she'd had a sister who died before her birth. Margaret had successfully buried Anna's existence so deeply that even her own daughter, born 3 years later, had never learned the truth. Jennifer understood now why the photograph had been locked in a trunk. Her great-grandmother had kept it as evidence, as proof of what she'd witnessed, but had hidden it away to protect her surviving children from the stigma and questions that would have followed. 4 months later, Jennifer stood in the gallery of the Oregon Historical Society, watching visitors examine the exhibition she'd curated, Invisible Worlds, Infant Perception and Early Electrification in Urban America, 1900-1915. The centerpiece was the Morrison family photograph, displayed alongside the glass plate negatives showing the electromagnetic shadow. Jennifer had worked with historians, neurologists, and physicists to create an exhibition that honored Anna's story while exploring broader themes of infant perception, electromagnetic sensitivity, and the unintended consequences of technological progress. Explanatory panels described how rapid urban electrification in the early 1900s had created electromagnetic environments unprecedented in human history. Most adults and children adapted without difficulty, their brains filtering out the new electromagnetic noise. But a small percentage of infants appeared to possess heightened sensitivity, perceiving fields and frequencies invisible to others. The exhibition documented Dr. Brennan's 7 cases, showing how each child's death correlated with proximity to electrical infrastructure. It presented current research on electromagnetic sensitivity, explaining how some individuals still experience this condition today, though rarely with the tragic consequences seen in these historical cases. But the heart of the exhibition remained Anna Morrison's photograph, that baby's impossible gaze, staring at something the rest of her family couldn't see, captured forever by a camera that had registered both the child and the shadow of what she perceived. Jennifer had written the main exhibition text herself. Anna Morrison died at 9 months old, not from illness but from perceiving too much. She was born into a world being transformed by electricity, and her neurological system was sensitive enough to see the invisible electromagnetic landscape that transformation created. She watched fields and frequencies that cameras could barely capture and that human eyes could not consciously detect. The effort of processing this constant input exceeded her infant brain's capacity, and she gradually declined until her death in March 1909. Her mother understood that Anna had possessed an extraordinary ability, but fear of stigma and social pressure led the family to erase Anna from their history. For over a century, she existed only as dates in a Bible and a single photograph locked in a trunk. This exhibition restores Anna Morrison to history, not as a tragedy or an anomaly, but as evidence of human perceptual diversity and a reminder of how technological progress can have unexpected effects on those whose neurology differs from the norm. Anna saw what others couldn't see. That gift was also her burden. May her story encourage us to listen when children perceive the world differently, and to consider carefully the invisible environments we create. On opening day, a woman in her 80s approached Jennifer. "I'm Anne Brennan," she said, Dr. Thomas Brennan's granddaughter. "I've been waiting my entire life for someone to tell these children's stories." She handed Jennifer a folder. Grandfather's personal diary from 1909. He never stopped thinking about Anna Morrison and the others. He wrote about them until his death, trying to understand, trying to find ways to protect infants with heightened perception. This belongs with the exhibition. Jennifer opened the diary to a passage dated March 22, 1909, the day Anna died. "I held Anna Morrison today as she died. In her final moment, her eyes lost that fixed, distant focus and looked directly at her mother, truly seeing her mother's face, I believe, for the first time in months. She smiled, a tiny, peaceful smile, then she was gone. I think, perhaps, she had finally finished watching whatever she needed to see. I hope she found peace. I hope wherever she is now, the invisible world no longer demands her attention." Jennifer displayed the diary passage next to Anna's photograph. Together they told the complete story. A baby who saw too much, a doctor who tried to understand, and a family who loved her but couldn't protect her from the gift that became her fate. Visitors came daily, drawn by the photograph and staying to read Anna's story. Parents brought children with sensory processing differences and found comfort in knowing they weren't alone. Scientists discussed electromagnetic sensitivity and infant neurology. Artists were moved by the photograph's haunting beauty, the technical perfection and emotional power of that impossible gaze. Jennifer watched them all, grateful she had found Anna in her grandmother's attic, grateful she had restored her to history. The baby who had stared at invisible worlds for 9 months in 1908 was finally seen, finally understood, finally remembered. And that shadow in the photograph, the electromagnetic field Anna had been watching, remained visible to anyone who looked carefully. Proof that sometimes cameras and children see truths that adults have learned to ignore. Anna Morrison's gaze would continue to puzzle historians and move viewers for generations to come. But now, thanks to Jennifer's work, they would know what they were seeing, not a mystery or an anomaly, but courage, the courage of an infant who couldn't look away from what she perceived, even when it cost her everything.